So, welcome everyone. Let us start. Okay, so we last stopped again. The chapter is release. Just a second.
So the chapter is the release from the ego, and we were on page number 361, 360, last paragraph. We have to start. And last time, I think we didn't read that much. We just read a little bit, discussed, and then we did a meditation last time. So today we can maybe again take an overlap and start from the end of page 360, Synthesis of Yoga. Starting from that substance is the self of the man called in European thought. So maybe we can start again from today. Yes. Yeah. So anyone who feels like reading, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
That substance is the self of the man, called in European thought the monad, in Indian philosophy jiva or jivatman, the living entity, the self of the living creature. This jiva is not the mental ego sense constructed by the workings of nature for her temporary purpose. It is not a thing bound as the mental being. The vital, the physical are bound by her habits, laws, or processes. The jiva is a spirit and self, superior to nature. It is true that it consents to her acts, reflects her moods, and upholds the triple medium of mind, life, and body through which she casts them upon the soul's consciousness. But it is itself a living reflection or a soul form or a soul creation of the spirit, universal and transcendent. The one spirit who has mirrored some of his modes of being in the world and in the soul is multiple in the jiva. That spirit is the very self of ourself, the one and the highest, the supreme we have to realize, the infinite existence into which we have to enter. Should I continue? Okay. And so far, the teachers walk in company, all agreeing that this is the supreme object of knowledge, of works, and of devotion, all agreeing that if it is to be attained, the jiva must release himself from the ego sense which belongs to the lower nature or maya. But here they part company and each goes his own way. The monist fixes his feet on the path of an exclusive knowledge and sets for us as sole ideal an entire return, loss, immersion, or extinction of the jiva in the supreme. The dualist or the partial monist turns to the path of devotion and directs us to shed indeed the lower ego and material life, but to see as the higher destiny of the spirit of man, not the self annihilation of the Buddhist, not the self immersion of the Advaitin, not a swallowing up of the many by the one, but an eternal existence absorbed in the thought, love, and enjoyment of the Supreme, the One, the All Lover. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So any reflections, thoughts are welcome. Yeah, so I think again, the words are, sentences are long, words are many, and it can happen that we get lost and it just remains a philosophy for us. It can happen. because usually the mind is so scattered and we are not able to really see most of the times what exactly is that, what can be practiced actually, So if I just go through this paragraph and there is no practice which comes in my life, I think for me, I don't know what really helps. I may say that yes, I have read Synthesis of Yoga, but it has not become my practice. So for me, I'll just share my reflection here. We can take more reflections. So when he talks about the jiva, we have to connect with the witnessing awareness in us. All of us, I think, by now, through all the meditations that we do, or how we are able to look at our thoughts, look at our feelings. So the one which is looking, the one seated behind all the movement of Prakriti, which is thoughts, feelings, and sensations, what we in other words also call the Purusha, the one immobile, stable. My mood may go up and down, but the one looking at the mood doesn't go up and down. So that looking aspect, that is where we have to stabilize ourselves if we want to understand practically for ourselves what is this jiva that Sri Aurobindo talks of. So we have to stabilize ourselves in that witnessing consciousness more and more, more and more, so that the rest of the steps which have to come in the sadhana, they come. But before that, I would not understand what is the jiva that he is talking to. So what is he saying? The jiva is a spirit and self superior to nature. What is nature here? Our thoughts, feelings, the patterns, the habits, everything that moves in us is nature. Sensations, perceptions, ideas, whatever, everything that moves is nature. And jiva is a spirit and self superior to nature. It is true that it consents to her act. So as if the screen has said, yes, the movie can play on me. Somewhere that consent has been given. That's why the movie is playing. But the consent can be withdrawn. And this we only get in touch with the power of taking stance as that witnessing awareness. When we more and more realize that yes, I can become stabilized there, then we see that we can choose in which thoughts and feelings to engage in, and we can withdraw our sanction. It gives us power that by default all the sanction is given that yes, free play of Prakriti. But then I begin to master myself. This is what we mean by mastering myself, that I decide in which thing and place and situation I want to engage, and rest I don't want to engage. So that sanction is withdrawn. There you have the capacity then, when we stabilize ourselves at that Purusha or the witnessing consciousness, right? So it is true that it consents to her acts, reflects her moods, and upholds the triple medium of mind, life, and body. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, sense perceptions, all the play is happening on that screen, which is the Purusha, through which he casts them upon the soul's consciousness. But it is itself a living reflection or a soul form or a self creation of the spirit, universal and transcendent. So it is yet not the divine. When I am stabilized in the Purusha or witnessing consciousness, it is as if you imagine that as if there is a lake within us which has now fallen quiet. It's absolutely still lake. And when the lake is absolutely still, what it can reflect is the light from the sun. It can reflect clearly. But usually what happens is the lake is very, very much in turmoil. It's lots of keychad and lots of dirt and dirt all the time. Wavy. So the effect of this disentangling of from my thoughts, feelings, and emotion is that the lake becomes quiet. So this is the jiva, the witnessing at the background. Now I am knowingly established as that. So that when that lake is quiet, the water is still, then the reflection can be purer, of the sun. The sun was anyway there, but the reflection was not purer. So he is saying that it is itself itself a living reflection or a soul form or a self creation of the spirit, universal and transcendent. Still, it is not, can't say that I have reached the divine, when we touch this consciousness, witnessing consciousness. And yet it is an aspect of divine and a purer form that we can touch. The one spirit who has mirrored some of his modes of being in the world and in the soul is multiple in the jiva. That spirit is the very self of ourselves. The one and the highest, the supreme, we have to realize the infinite existence into which we have to enter. So right now, the more I stabilize myself as the witnessing consciousness, I become like a stable lake. I am more and more able to reflect that higher, the spirit, which he says that the spirit is the very self, the one and the highest. So that reflection, when it happens, it is like it is a more clearer reflection. There is less confusion, more clarity. And so far, the teachers walk in company. So this much he says that people agree with, but then comes the bifurcation. So he says that the monist, I think I should not miss. So far, the teachers walk in company, all agreeing that this is the supreme object of knowledge, of works, of devotion. So either karma yoga, bhakti yoga, this is what, or jnana yoga, knowledge. This is what we have to arrive at, all agreeing that if it is to be attained, the jiva, that is the purusha, must release himself from the ego sense which belongs to the lower nature or maya, which in earlier time we were talking as mukti, the liberation from that limited sense of this is me, this little me. So jiva has to disentangle and liberate itself from that limited sense of self if it is to reach the ultimate. But here they part company and each goes his own way. And then he shares about the difference. The monist fixes his feet on the path of an exclusive knowledge and sets for us as sole ideal and entire return, loss, immersion, or extinction of the jiva in the supreme. So the wave crashes back into the divine in the ocean, and there is nothing that remains. Entire return, loss, immersion, extinction of the jiva in the supreme. The dualist or the partial monist, he says, turns to the path of devotion. So a bhakta would never want that the object of devotion goes away. He would always want a little distance so that I can pray to the divine. So that little distance it would always need, that I can be known as bhakta. I can love the divine. Because if one becomes just completely merged together, there is, you can't love. Like for love, we need duality. So he says that the dualist or the partial monist returns to the path of devotion, bhakti, and directs us to shed indeed the lower ego and material life, but to see as the highest destiny of the spirit of man, not the self-annihilation of the Buddhist, what you just shared, that this entire loss, immersion, extinction, not self-annihilation of the Buddhist, not the self-immersion of the Advaitin, not a swallowing up of many by one, but an eternal existence absorbed in the thought, love, and enjoyment of the Supreme. So if I am the Bhakta, it is very important for me, if I am to continue loving the divine, that divine exists in front of me and I am the Bhakta. So there is still a distance. There is a duality, and yet it's a sweet duality. So he says that dualist or partial monist, he says that may it be an eternal existence absorbed in the thought, so I can go on continuing loving the divine, loving the divine, loving the divine, but still there would be two, the one who is loved and the lover. Yeah, so here then the paragraph ends, so I should also breathe. Yeah. So yeah, we can take reflections. That was just what I understood here. At another place, I was reading something where he says that the difference between, see, the spirit can reach the divine, we know. And then the mother was sharing that what happens with us, where we find it challenging, is that in meditation, you feel really great. We have really beautiful experiences. They're also real. But the problem is that when I'm meditating, as if I'm letting go of a jacket that I'm wearing, I'm keeping it aside, and I'm saying for now you won't matter, you don't matter, and let me just in purity commune with the divine. But she says, but the moment that person may be meditating for hours, the moment that person is back and wears that jacket again, which is our outer existence, he sees that still anger may be there, frustration may be there, annoyance may be there, same people, same interactions, no change as if that has happened. So this is what, when integral yoga is about, this bridging that gulf. That yes, that purity, pure communion is possible. That is real experience that you are having in meditation. But what we want to do here is we want to not keep the jacket aside. We want to also transform the jacket. So ये नहीं बोलना that you can be filthy, but here I have something pure. So in our actions, in our thought, in our feelings, that has to be illumined. That's what we mean by transformation of lower nature. So something has to trickle, and he says that in integral yoga, when the sadhak, even if the sadhak is having some experiences, communion with the divine inside above, the thing is that you still keep a touch with your mortal existence, and you make it also primary in your life. It's not secondary, right? And I know that this has to change. This has to change. So there is in Savitri also we had read that when Ashwapati is climbing up the stairs of ascent, he is constantly in touch with his mortal nature. He is grounded, So that's what our challenge is, and that's why Mother's remembrance comes into picture, because she is the golden bridge which will bridge this gulf for us, because we can't. We can, but with her power. Yeah. Yeah, so I can stop here and take more reflections. Anyone?
Yeah, I do want to say that with the speed and clarity with which you actually went about it was very delightful to watch. So thank you for that. And the last part that you were sharing, there is this small story which is very beautiful, which is reflective of almost the same thing. I mean, it's touching there that once there was this girl who wanted to meet her lover and she was running to meet him. And maybe on the way, one of the Maulvis was sitting down for his prayers, and in a rush, she didn't see him bending down. He was doing his prayers and all. And I guess uski leg lag gayi, like it was he was hit by her leg, and he rose up. He stopped his prayer. He rose up and he said, "Hey, stupid girl, kind of in very bad way. Stop! What are you doing? Do you even realize what you have done? Who you have kicked?" And she stopped and she was surprised. And he was like, "And now why are you surprised?" So she said that, I, for my mortal love, like I'm running to meet my lover, not seeing who's on my way. I didn't even realize that I have kicked whatever, my leg touched you and stuff. And you who was bending down in the love of God are so not there that you could feel my feet. So I'm just wondering what love that is. So again, it's very reflective of how we live, right? Like it's there in everything, in all the show and all the glitter and glamour, glitter and glamour, not glam. But yeah, if it's not touching me, if it's not changing me, if it's not transforming me, so yeah, like how Acharya Prashant used to say, ke, don't talk about big things, tell me how you are living, show me your life. I think that is very reflective. And another thing, just a very short comment that came to me, when it started, how we are often, we perceive that we know we are ruled by nature, that when we say that it is, but this naturally happens, right? It's naturally takes me there, or this is just how things happen. But this constant reminder that yes, nature wants this, but Atman rules nature, right? Atman is not under nature. I am more than nature is a reminder that if one keeps reminding oneself, one is able, it helps one to break away or step aside, because it's a collective, right? This naturally happening, we take it as that there is no way out. This is what I was intended to do, or how it was intended to happen. So how it started, that first it the first thing it said was, right, that beyond nature. So I thought that's a very good reminder that without that, the first step, nothing would be graspable even. Yeah, thank you.
I was also very touched by, I kind of really resonated with Monica, what you said about that, about acknowledging one's humanness and yet keep always try to tread on this bridge towards divinization, and how Mother connects us to be that bridge between our humanness and divinization, and especially about dualism that we were reading. And it's always, for me, it has always come as a reminder, because you read these things and you kind of intellectually understand that, from dualism we have to go to oneness and kind of have to embrace this universal love. And I remember in one of the projects that we were doing at work, I two of my colleagues were sick, and I very willingly, because I think that time I was reading quite a lot about moving beyond dualism and universal love, I said, okay, I can take up the work, intellectually, because I was saying, how does it matter? We are all one in spirit. I remember very well this thing. And I took up additional work. And also very quite often it happens in the home where, where you think, oh, how does it matter? Do we have to divide duties between yourself and the partner? It's you both are one, or even at work you feel. But at the same time, how that feeling wears off so fast, and the frustration and complaining kick in, especially at work. I remember when I was doing the project, I was doing very well, I was doing everything, and after a few days I thought, oh my god, I'm not able to do it. Why did I even try to do it? And and I start complaining about my other fellow colleagues, and how it doesn't really help only in the intellectual understanding. So although the goal is that, but at the same time, right now, it's for me, it was a good reminder to acknowledge myself and be honest where I am. I have not reached that, so I have to keep striving towards it, but also acknowledge my limits, that I'm not yet prepared. The preparation has to keep happening till the time, of course, we reach that level where we understand that we all are one in spirit. So you need boundaries in that sense. You need compartmentalization of work. You need all these structures till a time, of course, it comes that we transcend it. But I think that was really, what you said about acknowledging your humanness and yet every day keep working towards the divinization in the human world. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Yuan, you want to share something?
I was just thinking,
Yeah, we can't hear somehow. I just heard I was thinking.
sorry?
Yeah,
Do you
now I
hear me?
can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't get whatever you were sharing. Please start again.
Okay. I was hearing you, Nandini, and I remember that the first time I read The Life Divine, one thing that really struck me, and I wrote it down also in my wall at that time. I was young, and where it said that more or less this idea that not only unity but multiplicity are both absolutely real, like uh, they coexist in reality. They are two absolute aspects of God, of reality. Like when we in the synthesis of yoga, I think in the first chapters, he says that no matter how unified your view of the world, how how do you want to see oneness in everything, uh, you just have to accept at least three aspects of this oneness, which are universal, transcendent, and immanent, like the soul of man, the universe, and God are like you cannot avoid making this difference or something like that. So I think we have to embrace that paradox. That Sri Aurobindo is also telling us that everything is oneness, and at the same time multiplicity is real, and the world is real, and we have to we cannot grasp this with our minds completely.
Yeah, very important. Thank you. That's the point that if I talk about oneness and harmony in relationships or at workplace, this is the error, what you were sharing. This is the error that we make, that we think that if my idea of oneness and harmony is not happening, then, the harmony and oneness is not there. But that's not true. And that is where we have to step back, that I'm rigid with my ideas of harmony and my ideas of oneness, and that is not my task. And that, I think we really don't understand how distracted we are. We are really very distracted, so distracted. And if we can just become too sincere, a little bit sincere, that our practice is the most important, and my focus is on myself rather than others. Always, because there is glitter around. There is so much glitter around which pulls us all the time. So it's very easy. It doesn't even appear as glitter. And glitter, when I say, it appears shiny, so that I can recognize it is glitter. But what is the glitter that I'm referring to is the glitter which appears like, oh, this is necessary for me to think about it. That is the glitter. And the moment I begin into the loop of thinking and involving myself in, this must be done, and why it was not done in this way, that way, I distract myself from my own practice. My connection with mother in that moment goes away, because what am I stressing at? कि ये इस तरीके से नहीं हुआ. This did not happen in the way it must have happened. So, and we are, again, it can be talked at various levels, but we are talking of all of us who are here in the session today. At the level of consciousness, relatively, that we have to really concentrate on practical unification with our immanent divine, what Yuan was sharing, and living in that true being, not living in the domain of outer being, thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions. No, living in the true being. That is the witnessing aspect that we were sharing. More and more living there. And when we begin to more and more live there, we see that then we are not very rigid about, oh, this was the way I said, and this is how it should have happened. No, because we are somehow aware of that workings everything has a larger picture, and I don't know. So, and my focus is on myself. My focus is on myself. Have I realized the divine within? No, na. So I have to work there. And then harmony, oneness, interconnectedness, work, relationship. Again, that is secondary. We all have lessons to learn there, but then even lessons are easier to learn when we are on the path sincerely within myself, practically. Not just talking about it, but practically in my being, letting the descent of force, anand, peace, whatever, it has to come, let it happen. But if I remain like a stumbling block all the time and try to fix everything around me, this is what we have to now let go of. There is more to realization and transformation than just reading, talking, and discussing about it. That's what we have to focus on, apart from reading, discussing, and reflecting about it. Everything like has a proper place, but yes, this cannot be neglected. So where is the mind resting all the time? We have empty pockets of time. We have 24 hours in a day. Where is my mind resting? If the mind continues to rest in thoughts and feelings, past and future, no. That's where I have to realize. The mind has to rest either with the divine or in the body with the breath, in the body. Body is the home of the mind, fully present. Or the mind has to center itself somewhere where we have a true feeling of connection with our true being. That witnessing aspect, or for each his own. So would be a different unfolding for everyone. But this practical stabilization of our attention, not in thoughts and feelings and ruminations, but in something which uplifts us, is very, very important, which we have to thread. And that is how the separation, just jiva would disentangle itself from the nature and exert its power now on nature. And then harmony will also come, oneness, interconnectedness, everything will come. That's a byproduct. Yeah.
Yes, I think that is a part of the beauty and the difficulty that Sri Aurobindo and Mother let us, like many spiritual communities, giving a lot of commandments and precepts and making, very strict rules about we all dress the same, we all do the same. They have taken some idea of oneness, but try to cut off the multiplicity, and I think that makes it more difficult, but of course more genuine and more wide.
Yeah, right. Very true. I think right now in our state of consciousness, when we talk about the idea of oneness, it is if you and me are one, then we have to think alike, feel alike, everything has to be alike. So as you are sharing that, there is no space for multiplicity. It's like a monotone that has to be there. And if there is, I'm not thinking like you, I'm not feeling like you, and I'm not, interested in the things as you, it means we are not one. So in our ignorance, that's our idea of oneness. And that, of course, but again, the necessary step which Sri Aurobindo presents in idea of human unity, the ideal of human unity, is that even nations, families, individuals, unity and oneness can come only when each one of us strives to have a union with the divine within. First, the divine within, and then, of course, the successive realization. Without them, we cannot have true unity and harmony. So that's where we have to do our task, get back to work. So let's take this subsequent paragraph, if anyone is wanting to read.
Yes, ma'am, I can read it.
Yes, please.
For the disciple of an integral yoga, there can be no hesitation. As a seeker of knowledge, it is the integral knowledge and not anything either halfway and attractive or high pinnacled and exclusive he must seek. He must soar to the utmost height, but also circle and spread to the most all-embracing wideness, not binding himself to any rigid structure of metaphysical thought, but free to admit and combine all the soul's highest and greatest and fullest and most numerous experiences. If the highest height of spiritual experience, the sheer summit of all realization, is the absolute union of the soul with the transcendent, who exceeds the individual and the universe, the widest scope of that union is the discovery of that very transcendent as the source, support, continent, informing and constituent spirit and substance of both these manifesting powers of the divine essence and the divine nature. Whatever the path, this must be for him the goal. I will read that one more time. Whatever the path, this must be for him the goal. The yoga of action also is not fulfilled, is not absolute, is not victoriously complete until the seeker has felt and lives in his essential and integral oneness with the Supreme. One, he must be with the divine, both in his highest and inmost, and in his widest being and consciousness, in his work, his will, his power of action, his mind, body, life. Otherwise, he is only released from the illusion of individual works, but not released from the illusion of separate being and separate being and instrumentality. As the servant and instrument of the divine, he works, but the crown of his labor and its perfect base of motive is oneness with that which he serves and fulfills.
Yeah,
Should
we
I
can
continue?
take a
Yes.
and we can take a
Okay.
pause here. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so any sharing? It's very interesting how all embracing can this be really the words also and what he's hinting at. For a disciple of an integral yoga, and integral meaning it is not excluding any part of the being. No part of the being is excluded from that sadhana. There can be no hesitation. As a seeker of knowledge, it is the integral knowledge and not anything either halfway and attractive or high pinnacled and exclusive we must seek. So it has to be integral. It must not exclude any part of my being. If I have to seek a light and truth, that truth and light has to illuminate each and every part and particle of my being. So That's integral. He must soar to the utmost height, but also, so whenever we are talking about soaring and reaching some height, it feels as if I'm going somewhere else and I'm leaving something behind, right? So as if I'm going away from Earth, right, and leaving the Earth as it is. So whenever we talk about soaring into height, so he says he must soar to the utmost height, but also circle. So like how a rocket or anyway, a spaceship first would take a height. No, but then he says that yes, he must soar, but also would circle. So he has not left the earth consciousness behind, right? So he must soar to the utmost height, but also circle and spread to the most all-embracing wideness. So a wideness which does not exclude any part of the manifestation. Right? Not binding himself to any rigid structure of metaphysical thought, but free to admit and combine all the soul's highest and greatest and fullest and most numerous experiences. So whatever I have attained on the height, it must make sense on the depth also. One example which is coming to me is that imagine that there are people, not only imagine, like there are people who are very, like, they're geniuses in their field, like really beautiful conceptions, theories, and understandings they have of nature, universe, or science, of whatever their field is. Now, what we all, I'm sure all of us must have heard, that a person, if he truly, truly knows, he must make the knowledge so simple that he can make it understand even a little child, 3-4-year-old child. Not that, because I'm a PhD and I'm really gone further and written so many articles, I can't come back to a child and make him understand what I'm doing. So that's what can be an example here, that even if the person here, the speaker on the path of integral yoga, even if he has to rise, which he will rise, so to the height, utmost height, so he must circle and spread to the most all-embracing wideness. Not saying कि मैं तो वहाँ पहुँच गया, I am there and that's why I can't make a KG or first class child understand, because see, my level is PhD or whatever. So if my level is PhD or postdoc or whatever, then it means that if any true genius, true realization is there, then I must make it very simple for the little child to understand what I am doing or what I am trying to do. So not binding himself to any rigid structure of metaphysical thought, but free to admit and combine all the soul's highest and greatest and fullest and most numerous experiences. So, although that high realization is there, but it's not only on the height, it's also on the ground. So making life simple, making life illuminated, and not just some experiences somewhere else. If the highest height of spiritual experience, the sheer summit of all realization, is the absolute union of the soul with the transcendent, who exceeds the individual and the universe, then the widest scope of that union is the discovery of that very transcendent as the source, support, continent, informing and constituent spirit and substance of both these manifesting powers of the divine essence and divine nature. So even if, see, Joanne was talking about three aspects. First is the individual divine, what in other words we call psychic being, the realization of the psychic. Then there is the universal divine, which we can call a spiritual realization. Then there is, beyond that, transcendental divine. So these are the three major realizations which we read in integral yoga. So first we have to know the divine within. And through that magnet, as if we rise and have the spiritual realization, the universal realization. And then further and further, if this lifetime, other lifetime, whatever, not talking about the time frames, transcendental realization. So he is saying that now if I have reached or touched even the transcendental, I actually should be able to know the transcendental in each and every particle of manifested nature and know that that transcendental is present here. So that has to be integral knowledge and integral realization. Not that, oh, I have realized somewhere else and that is why this manifestation is very corrupt and dirty and I want to leave it and go somewhere else. Not like that. They may appear like big and heavy words, but they are said to us, and Sri Aurobindo has written synthesis of yoga because this is for us to realize. So again and again, one may go that, oh my God, too big. I don't know how to do. It happens. How to do. Abhi to individual has not yet happened. Why to talk of transcendental divine? But when we read about these things, we know that, oh my God, so much is lying in front of me, and I am like scattered away here and there. So much job is lying unaccomplished. Right? So we give ourselves employment, fresh employment when we read these words. Yeah. Yeah, anything until here? Anyone?
When you were reading this, he must soar to the utmost height, but also circle and spread to the most all embracing wideness, not binding himself to any rigid structure. I was reminded of a thought of some realization that I had two days ago. Something I was looking at mother's photo. I think she was in Japan with some people and kids, and that photo touched me so deeply because there was so much of love that she was pouring on those people. And a similar photo you can see, there's so many pictures in Pondicherry, that with with small kids, with ashram inmates, with people who came from outside. And when you were reading this, that she had soared to that utmost height, she was the divine mother, but that did not deter her to kind of spread and circle this kind of wideness with people, not only just in Pondicherry, because we get so much, especially me, sometimes we get so much compartmentalized. Oh, we belong to, I'm an Indian, so I belong to this community. Oh, I'm a PhD student, so I belong to this college or this, in some way or the other. We're always caught in the rigid structure. But I was looking at the mother, I was just marveling. And it's something that you said, it's that how she could do it. Like, of course she was the divine mother, but she was also embodied in this humanness. And if we just look at how she was freely embracing without any rigid structure, either she was in Algeria or in France or in Japan or in Pondicherry, she did not not even for a second she compartmentalized her into any rigid structure. And how she was, so just an exemplification, I thought, an example of this imagery, in terms of imagery, how can we understand it? I just thought of the mother and I was really marveling. And maybe I'll share the picture, but it's so beautiful. It's like it has a psychic touch to it, that wow, she could do it, not even for a second thinking, oh, they are Japanese, or I'm here, not belonging to any structure but the divine self. And so yeah, just that I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, anything else? Anyone here?
Yeah, this thing about soaring and yet being fully aware of where all I am and the wideness and the ground. I think this is again a very, I mean, of course, this is talking about a certain state, but at any state, because if I ever see something, feel something, touch something, understand something, there is something in me which says, now I am here, right? Mera ho gaya, I have achieved. And that person, see how he's just or she's just right roaming around on this in the streets and that's enough for her. As in, without realizing or wanting to, some kind of judgment or some division uh, starts seeping in, that somebody is here, the other person is there. But when you are kind of, instead of just a rocket, if you're just increasing in height and your grounds are firmly planted on the, sorry, your feet are planted on the ground, then you can never say that, see, the other is standing on the ground, because your feet are also on the ground. So, yeah, just that aspect I felt also came to me, that how helpful it would be, and it is, never to forget where one is standing, where one has come from. And like, how it says that I was a stone, I was a plant, I was a crawling insect. So, just when I see the Jarta in someone, I know that that too is me, right? I have lived it too. It's still living in me. So one can have compassion and kindness, and yeah, I mean, it just helps one in being more realist. I don't know what word to use, but non-divisionary. It's yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what we usually relate with. A mark of any true realization is that humility, that groundedness, which, and it's like very obvious, and, some, some masters, that if some of us may have met, people who are relatively evolved, you would see a lot of grounding, and what the aspect of love that Nandini was sharing, that they are on the ground and not high up in the air, and that divisiveness is not there. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah, I thought maybe at this moment, although I keep mixing up and like jumbling up things, maybe at this moment, since, all of you were sharing, and it just reminded me of this thing which we have in Savitri, we have touched upon, just touched upon, not, can't say really covered, because we don't know what we have read and understood. So in secret knowledge, there was this, like, how Ashupati's yoga, and I thought maybe we could read a few lines. It would be really nice because they relate to what we are doing right now. Mm, yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah, starting from here. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours. Maybe we can just go through this. I don't know what exactly stuck me, but something was there. So yeah, maybe those lines come up. So if anyone would like to read, maybe you can start from our souls can visit in great lonely hours.
I I can read. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours, still regions of imperishable light, all seeing eagle peaks of silent power, a moonflame oceans of swift, fathomless bliss, and calm immensities of spirit space. In the unfolding process of the self, sometimes the inexpressible mystery elects a human vessel of descent. A breath comes down from a supernal air, a presence is born, a guiding light awakes. A stillness falls upon the instruments, fixed, motionless like a marble monument. Stone calm, the body is a pedestal supporting a figure of eternal peace. Shall I go on?
Yeah, you can stop. You can stop. So just these, try to feel it, right now, if we can. This one. So just making the being absolutely still. No movement of thought, feeling, body sensation, nothing. Nothing at all. No movement in the being. Just we can practically, for a few seconds, we can try to experience it in the body. No movement of thought, no movement of feeling, no movement, restless vibration in the body. Absolute stillness, all of the instruments. Like a marble statue. A breath comes down from a supernal air. A presence is born. A guiding light awakes. A stillness falls upon the instruments, fixed, motionless, like a marble monument. Stone calm. The body is a pedestal supporting a figure of eternal peace. Then the small bodily ego thins and falls, no more insisting on its separate self, losing the punctilio of its separate birth. It leaves us one with nature and with God. In moments when the inner lamps are lit and the life's cherished guests are left outside, our spirit sits alone and speaks to its soul. So this is where we can, again, one of the things we can work upon is that when we try to be still, absolutely still in the being, all the instruments are still, mind, life, body, everything still. You will see that very soon the body wants to move or you want to think, you want to engage with something. And this is where we have to build endurance. This restless activity of the mind, restless activity of the emotions, feelings. The body also has no capacity to be still. This is where we can slowly, because if we don't create this still empty space, where would the new consciousness come? The room is already full of so important material that we have collected. Cherished guests, when life's cherished guests are left outside, भैया नहीं चाहिए, no thought, no feeling, no past, no future, अभी कुछ भी नहीं चाहिए, nothing is required right now. So in that space, the spirit has a communion with the divine. So I may read the whole synthesis of yoga maybe 2 times, 3 times, but if practically I don't do it, and in one page, actually, if I begin some practical work, 1 page of synthesis of yoga, enough for giving us some practical work. And then we make it a practice in our daily, day-to-day life. We have those moments where the cherished guests of thoughts and feelings and what is important in my life, what is not important, everything is left outside. And there is stillness in the being, and there is space, emptiness, blankness, and true communion with that peace and stillness within. So stillness is one of the major One can say we cannot avoid, we can't be all the time restless, speaking, thinking, acting, all the time troubled with what has to be done, what doesn't need to be done. Oh my God, I'm so busy, I have so much to do, so much things to take care of. With all this happening, I can't think of connecting with my immanent divine, which is the first step. So a basic stillness in the being, and stillness may not mean that you have to sit still. In the beginning, it may mean sitting still, but that stillness you can carry throughout the day. In the middle of work, you carry that empty stillness in your being, like a solid receptacle of peace, unmoving. Outwardly, things may be happening. Outwardly, you may be saying things, interacting with people, but inwardly, as if nothing matters. Nothing matters. Nothing is as important as the inner world. So just maybe taking up these last few lines, and we can take more reflections, and then we can stop today. So what Jagan had read, we just go until that point. Whatever the path, this must be for him the goal. This again, the bridging, the circling. The yoga of action also is not fulfilled, is not absolute, is not victoriously complete until the seeker has felt and lived in his essential and integral oneness with the Supreme. So, this going and soaring up and realizing all the realizations that are waiting for us, that is absolute necessity, even if I have to do karma yoga. I can't say that no, I'm not interested in any realization. Let me do karma yoga. You can't say that, because even in action, the perfection will come only if that source we have a continuous connection with. Makes sense. The yoga of action also is not fulfilled, not absolute, not victoriously complete until the seeker has felt and lived in his essential and integral oneness with the Supreme. One, he must be with the divine, both in his highest and inmost, and in his widest being and consciousness. So you see how he's like circling everything: highest, inmost, and he's saying widest. So it's just all embracing. In his work, his will, his power of action, his mind, body, life, everything included, integral. Otherwise, he is only released from the illusion of individual works, but not released from the illusion of separate being and instrumentality. As the servant and instrument of divine, he works, but the crown of his labor and its perfect base or motive is oneness with that which he serves and fulfills. So, as we even reflecting it in day-to-day life, a servant, how much a servant can work, how best, how perfect he can work for a lord, for his master. Even human beings, we have a person who has a servant. You would see that if there is a unsaid or said, whatever, oneness and love between the servant and the master, then the servant will be able to fulfill the work even when the master doesn't need to say anything. The servant knows his master. There is a oneness at some level, love at some level. So there is such oneness between the seeker and the divine that realization after realization one has to go through, that one is able to fulfill that oneness in action also, so that there is no gulf that remains. This is the yoga of action, how it can be fulfilled. And then he talks about the yoga of devotion, but we won't go today there. So anything up till here we can take if there is any reflection. So I think it's very reflective for us, because many a times we think, oh, I want to have a good family, I want to have good relationships, I want to have good workplace situations, I want to do my best in whatever affairs I am living. So we have to, now reading this, we realize that even if that is my aim, that aim cannot be realized if I don't actually do the inner realization and sadhana which is required of me. Giving myself that inner space, quiet time when there is no relation I am attending to, no friends, nothing comes in between, just me and the divine. Then I can fill out the best, maybe, slowly, gradually. Yeah, any last comments before we end? Anyone? So we stop here, maybe page 362. We'll restart again from here, and before we leave, we can take a moment of silence, sharing, dedicating the merit of collective understanding, reading, reflection, joy, sharing it with all the sentient beings. We have a heart peaceful, and we have lots of joy and progress in our life. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.